We want to create a Slack clone in React. So we're going to do that thing. Lucky for us, someone went ahead and made a static HTML version of approximately what the user interface should look like when it's finished. This thing does not work. This is all hard-coded static HTML and CSS, but by golly, it's something to go on, just like with Dwarf Underground. But it's in a separate project. We're going to create the React app from scratch. And to do that, we're going to use Create React App, which is an official project from Facebook, who created React. So it is, as it says, something to create React apps with no build configuration. As mentioned yesterday, JSX is not real JavaScript. So we have to have some sort of build system to turn it into real JavaScript. And that can be a pain in the neck to configure. So they've made this project that gets us up and running without having to worry about any of that, with a development server pre-configured. All this stuff was in Dwarf Underground as well. It was created with this. So that's why it was as easy to start up as it was. So now we're going to use it from scratch. The README here is very thorough and good. I do recommend at least glancing over it to better understand what's going on. It explains the directory structure and more stuff. Gives the npm and yarn commands for all this stuff. And the user guide is very thorough and covers all kinds of stuff, including how to use it with various text editors, how to deploy it, how to do other stuff. It's a good README and a good user guide. So we're just going to start right off. So make sure you're in your XTBC directory, not like inside your Dwarf Underground directory or something like that. We don't want to create another React app inside a React app. Yo, Doug, I heard you like React apps, but not that much. So let's type create-react-app space Chatarang, because why not? So what that's going to do is create some files and install a whole bunch of dependencies. The same dependencies that we installed yesterday with yarn install. It will take a minute. When it finishes, it'll tell us some stuff. Created Chatarang at that directory. Inside that directory, you can run several commands. Yarn start starts the development server. Yarn build bundles the app into static files for production. Yarn test, yarn eject. We suggest that you begin by typing cd Chatarang yarn start. Sure, why not? Cd Chatarang yarn start. That runs the development server, running on localhost 3000. If you still have Dwarf Underground running or something, it'll prompt you, do you want to do it on a different port? That is fine, or you can go kill the server for Dwarf Underground. Either way. And it should look like this, just like the other project started out. And we're getting ready to develop, so I'm just going to open up my dev tools now because I know I'm going to want them. Now, this is monopolizing my window, of course, so I'm going to open up a new terminal window so I can open this thing in Visual Studio Code. And we see most of the same files that we saw yesterday, except the static HTML and stuff, so forth isn't in here. So we have package.json. The output from setting this thing up told us we could run several commands: yarn start, yarn build, yarn test, and yarn eject. So this is why we could run those. The package.json file defines those scripts. Eject is an interesting one. So the whole idea behind Create React App is zero configuration. You don't have to mess with configuring any of that stuff. In fact, you can't configure any of that stuff because it has hidden the configuration files from you. If you want or need to make changes to those, you can get to them by running yarn eject. But if you do that, it is not reversible. You cannot get back to the unejected state. Now, it'll work just like it did before you did that. The downside is right now, if there's a new version of Create React App, all we have to do is update React scripts to the next version, and we've upgraded it. We can upgrade all our dependencies that easily. If we do eject, then we'll have all the real dependencies listed, and we'll have to manage all that by ourselves. So don't eject unless you actually need to change your configuration for something like Webpack, which is the build system, and the task runner. But we shouldn't need to do that. So before I even do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and commit this much. So I need to create a new repository, right? Git init. Creates an empty repository. You could do this on the command line or not, whatever. Git add dot to add everything. Git commit. And I will say initial commit with create React app. It does not commit the node modules folder because that is listed in .gitignore, which is a file that you can always add to tell it that certain files should just be completely ignored by Git. Do not consider them when doing Git status or anything else. They will not be added when you say git add dot. So we leave the whole node modules folder out because that's a lot. And we have a dependency management system, so we shouldn't need it. Don't need it committed to our repository. So of course, we need to make an actual repository on our GitHub as well. You know how to do that. Create the repository, copy those 2 lines, git remote add origin, and what's the other one? Git push-u origin master, right? We've done it before. New repository, Chatarang, create repository, copy these 2 lines right here, push an existing repository from the command line. The first one tells it what repository to sync with, and git push actually does that thing. Copy those 2 lines, paste them in, and you're good to go. Yeah.
I got to the page where you're creating a new repository with statement and Chatarang. Where do you go from there?
So that should take you to this page, right?
Oh, you just press create repository after naming it?
Yeah. Just give it a name, hit create repository, and then you want to copy the 2 lines for push an existing repository from the command line. I guess we only did this once last week.
Yeah.
We usually do it a couple times. Yeah, we usually do it a couple times. So yeah, just make sure you copy the lines for pushing an existing repository. And
Was there something that you deleted too inside of one of the...
not yet.
Okay.
Then refresh after you've pushed, and you should see your files. What the heck? I thought I told this.